This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
This is your It's Already Starting Leader Fan Radio Network.
Okay.
And KFAN.com. 1 minute, 53 seconds past the hour of 3 o'clock Central Daylight Saving Time. Welcome back. It is a Monday edition of the Bumper to Bumper program on an exceedingly warm Monday afternoon here in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. Guardsy produces the show. He is at his familiar perch. My name's Dan Barreiro, the host of the program, former Inkster Wretch newspaper of the Twin Cities. And by the way, before we go any further, a tip of the cap to an old teammate of mine back in the Dallas Morning Newsday, Gene Wojciechowski. Technically, I think, was done at ESPN 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But he sent out a tweet.
I saw it.
So it must be he was still getting checks until this last weekend.
That's a good gig.
Good for Gino, right?
Or he just had something saved in his drafts that just got sent out accidentally.
Heck of a run at ESPN, mainly identified with college sports, right? College football largely.
He was on game day for a long stretch.
A lot of golf stuff, too.
Yes.
Did a lot of golf stuff as well. Maybe we'll try to catch up with Gino, because I think we did talk to him when he hung him up, or when that was announced, didn't we?
Probably
something else. I can't remember.
Probably. We've talked to him. We talked to him about Gopher football because he did a game day thing
true.
here.
That's
Casey
right.
O'Brien. We talked to him about Rick Majerus because he wrote Rick Majerus' book with him.
Also true.
We've had him on a handful of times.
He's had a terrific run. I don't know what he plans to do next. I hope it's not retired.
I think he's teaching at University of Tennessee.
Oh, is that right?
In the replies, somebody said something along the lines of his students at Tennessee are in good hands.
I didn't even realize he was out of the Chicago area. Or
something like that.
Maybe he's still got a place there and is teaching part of the year. Who's to say?
I think that's it.
I will try to catch up with him. We are delighted you chose to join us today. Bradshaw and Bryan KFAN text line rebooted for your purposes. And that number, as always, is 64686. We love to hear from you, wherever you indeed might be. And we got a lot planned for today's broadcast, including visits with Johnny Athletic. He is scheduled for 4:30 tonight. The yearly State of the State from Tim Conley, the Timberwolves president of basketball operations, took place earlier today, correct?
Yes.
And so I'm sure Johnny will file a live report on what juicy things Tim Conley had to say. Actually, if they're juicy, he probably didn't say them, because he's not a guy who's going to open up. He's not going to fill up the notebook that way. But you read between the lines sometimes. You might get some good fodder. So we'll chat with Johnny about all of that and more at 4:30. Our old friend Kyle Potter, who's become kind of a national travel guy if he wasn't already, with the big story he broke on mainly Delta, but I think several other airlines, basically.
At least two.
Punishing solo flyers, right?
People like me that are just trying to get somewhere.
From point A to point B.
One way, I should say. Point A to point B. As I'm taking the 8:30 to Indy on a Tuesday night just to try to catch up with the Gopher women's squad in Bloomington.
Which is your good fortune, getting flying through Indy, but go ahead.
I wish we could go there more.
Yeah.
But they were jacking with us.
Yeah.
They were trying to jack with the one-way solo travelers. And Kyle Potter said, not going to work.
Well, it's interesting because I think he has said customarily it's been the other way around.
Yes.
So I'm trying to figure out how we begin to even understand the rules according to Flying Hoyle. I have absolutely no idea, but he's very knowledgeable at that. He basically got the policy reversed on the basis of the story he broke last week, and he will join us at 5:30 tonight. Johnny Athletic, 4:30. Kyle Potter at 5:30.
I'm calling this the Dunkers moment for Kyle Potter. You know, once we got the Dunkers to reverse their decision. Similar, I think, impact.
I don't think that dream's died, though.
You think Jerry Kill can still come back?
I think it's possible, yeah.
It probably is, actually.
Is he still coaching?
He's somewhere. I think, last check, I think he was at Vanderbilt helping out.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure. I don't know if he was actually coaching.
Where did Brew land?
I don't know if
I think
Brew's
we talked
landed.
about this before. He's got to land somewhere, right?
Yeah, I don't know if he's landed from after being the interim coach in Charlotte. I'm not sure.
It's starting already. It's funny because I just warned about this as recently as yesterday's Sunday sermons. And sure enough, like right on cue today, have you seen the quote from your guy, Harrison Phillips? You seen it?
No, I don't think I've seen this one.
Harrison Phillips on JJ McCarthy.
Oh, boy.
Earlier today. You ready? He's got some confidence, and he reminds me of like Josh Allen when I was with him in Buffalo coming into his own and understanding the power that he has to lead this organization, and he's doing a fantastic job.
What do you mean?
Now, I'm sure the average Vikings fan is maybe grinning from ear to ear, right? Going, wow.
That's our guy.
That's our guy now. The time that is now. He's our starting quarterback this season. But I'm telling you, dangerous waters for the... I don't think you're doing the kid any favors, because you tell me what you think about this theory. I believe, in theory, several months from the 2025 football season opening, that folks will tell themselves they are very rational about what they expect from JJ McCarthy as a rookie. They'll say, I get it. There's going to be some bumps. Going to be some ups and downs. It might take some time. I'm fine with that. But I'm here to tell you that by the time we get to September 1, I don't think he's going to be given any lead-up time. I don't. I think people are going to be, let's go. We got great infrastructure around you. We keep adding pieces. We've rebuilt the offensive line. We've got not one, but two legitimate running backs now. We've got a minimum of two great wide receivers and maybe a third and a couple of tight ends. And our defense should be better than it was last year. Look at all the free agency money we've spent, et cetera. Let's get it going. What's the problem? He should hit the ground running. And by the way, maybe he will. It's not unprecedented for a kid quarterback who's not a rookie, but is in his second year feeling like a rookie because he couldn't play it all last year. And I'm just saying, you start going down that line.
The Josh Allen
line. Bro, as the kids say, or as at least my daughter says, bro. I mean, I'm just shaking my head. I think it's all going to add to a reality that maybe he's prepared for, and maybe the quarterback whisperer is prepared for. I don't think he's going to be given any mulligans. I think people are going to be demanding at least as good as Sam Darnold from day one. Am I wrong?
I don't think you are, and we did talk a little bit about this on Enough Said on Friday as well.
That's true.
You brought this up because the season is going to come up quickly. We're already in June, right? Training camp's in like 7 weeks.
Yes.
Nobody needs the season to start faster than JJ McCarthy, I think, because it's only going to get...
He might be sick of himself already, based on what everybody's asking all these questions and analyzing.
And we're talking about his process, and we're talking about how we've gotten better, and class on the grass, and virtual reality from last year. And I'm already kind of sick of it, and he keeps being... none of it's his fault.
No.
Because the other thing is, he's the starting quarterback, so people want to hear from him. Every time there's a media availability, at least one of the weeks, he's going to have to go up to the podium and talk about stuff, and there's nothing to talk about yet of any substance other than the 7 passes that we watched him throw, and I don't even know the number, against Oakland, which is now Las Vegas. And the thing we gleaned about that is he responded really well after the interception. Like, that's the talking point out there.
Preseason game.
We said this on Friday on TV. Is just like, for me personally, I need the JJ McCarthy era to start, because I can't do the podium sessions for another 3 months before we've even seen him play. And he might be great.
He might.
Odds are he's probably going to be pretty good, because KOC is, I think, pretty good at this stuff, and this is the guy that he wanted. So that's my mindset going into it, but it's extremely thick, and every press conference right now is rosy. I kind of want to see, and nothing ever went wrong for him at Michigan. They knew all the plays. We know that. So the year that he was that starting year when they won the national championship.
That's cheap.
Well, they had a lot of answers. Yeah. So I'm curious about when he has a bad game. Is he going to come in all, loosey-goosey and great to see and just got my lift in with the fellas and now we're going to talk? But that's where we are right now. And it feels like the season can't get here soon enough.
I think you're right. I mean, look at the texts already coming in. That just made me excited. I know. Again, I'm not mad at who said it, Harrison
Phillips.
He may believe it, and he might end up being right. But I also got to say, God, I mean, Josh Allen came into the league raw, right?
Yeah.
But my God, that is a quarterback specimen.
The kids would call him a wagon.
Yes.
He's a wagon.
He is. The cannon arm, big strapping lad. He outweighs our quarterback by like 100 pounds.
Yeah. They look like they're in different grades.
They do.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I know. And again, I know he was younger once too, because he came into the league, a little green. But what it tells me, like it just confirms for me that maybe even among players, they're everything else that this organization has done is about going for it right now, right?
Yeah.
And so that I think nurtures the notion that, well, they must think this guy can is the cat's meow from the first game, and you just start projecting and thinking it, and he might be up to it. Again, if they're smart, as we talked about yesterday on sermons, you'd like to think logically that the changes to the offensive line, at least spoken commitment, greater than ever to not being afraid to use the running game, even inside the 10-yard line, are more than lip service. And that's also an acknowledgement that how can I clear the path to give this kid from day one the best chance to succeed? Well, maybe it's not expecting him to throw for 385 yards a week right from the start, right? Maybe it's finding other ways to help him, make it easier for him. So all of that, I think you could argue is good for any quarterback, veteran or kid, but maybe that's all part of the deal. I just think, and I'm not even mad at fans if that's how impatient they get. Some of it's the time we live in. Some of it is the build-up, because it's been a year, 2 years now of anticipation.
Right.
The first time we went up went up to get a quarterback, right? This is the highest we've gone to get a quarterback.
And a year ago at this time, we were talking about which week we were going to see JJ.
That's true.
We were looking at the schedule that just came out and said, where is the logical JJ McCarthy landing spot? Is it after the London trip because they have a bye? We'll come back home and play somebody. Those were the conversations. So I get all the hype.
I was trying to find, to your point, too, about just how thick it's already getting. I'm trying to find was it today or yesterday? There was a story. This is a Kramer story. There's nothing wrong with the story. It's a good story, but JJ McCarthy builds a rapport with Justin Jefferson during the learning and teaching phase of Vikings offseason. We all agree the other JJ, Justin Jefferson, showing up is a really good thing. It's a smart thing for the receiver to do, right? It really is. And maybe it's even his way of acknowledging, God, we don't want to waste. We want to give ourselves the best chance to be good from the beginning in the JJ McCarthy era, right? But if you go through the quotes, let me see if I can find them. Where are they? Maybe that's some place. Hit the reads. I mean, he's got the lingo down already, McCarthy. Yeah. There's a lot of above the neck capacity today that we were just stressing. It's just so much fun out there to be able to hit some of those play calls and hit the reads. Then there's some where you miss a certain part of the cadence, but at the end of the day, it's all learning. Where was the other one? Appreciate it. There was another meaty quote. I give him credit. Everyone wants to be perfect, especially at the QB position, but the more you try to be perfect, it's going to kill you more than your imperfections will.
It's good advice.
Which is a good quote. It's a good observation. I just feel like being able to accept in these learning, teaching phases, it's okay to learn and fail and try things and take risks. Most of the risk is anticipatory throws. Trying to fit it into a tight spot, try little things with my footwork and my eyes. So all that's demonstrably true. That does maybe show some savvy, but it's just also thick, like you said. And we haven't even started training camp yet.
No.
Now, I guess the beauty of training camp is there'll at least be something visual to watch during practice,
yes,
right, as opposed to where they're hitting, at least occasionally.
Yes. And at times there'll be another team out there as
Correct.
well when they do the joint practices. A lot of that, though, you could sum it up to a lot of things that are easily correctable.
Yeah, don't say that.
Well, I'm just saying.
You're going to traumatize people
I'm just
with
saying,
that.
That's like a 12-year amendment to a lot of things that are easily correctable with just flowery 2025 culture shield language.
Yeah, you're right. Sad but true. Is it bonus bucks week?
No bonus bucks this week.
No bonus bucks this week. All right, let's stay on schedule. A little bit behind here. And we'll come back, get a couple of texts on this controversy. Lots more to get to, including two outstanding guests.
Fan.
Mike in New Richmond. Dan, all we hear nationally about the Vikings is skepticism because of JJ McCarthy. Being a Vikings fan is about hope. To hear people in the organization speak positively about our young franchise quarterback is exciting. National media definitely got the 2024 Vikings wrong. Gives me hope. They get the 2025 Vikings wrong as well. It's all about hope and dreams at this point. I say let's enjoy it while it lasts. We've suffered the negativity long enough. With failed hopes with this team, give us the summer at least. I'm not, believe it or not, despite my reputation, anti-hope. But here's why the pact I hope Mike will agree to accept. If in the month of September, JJ McCarthy struggles, as many young quarterbacks do, first time they get a shot at it, you're not going to grumble. You're not going to go, God, I don't know, man.
How's Darnold doing today?
They build up the roster everywhere else like they're going for it now. And wasn't it risky to think that, not that McCarthy eventually couldn't be a franchise quarterback, but to think that he could from day one in a way that this season won't be wasted? That's all I ask. That's all I ask. And I don't think it's too much to ask. If you can hold to that, then I'm fine. I don't think the national media is being negative about the Vikings because they don't like McCarthy. I think it's for the same reason that I got to see it. Got to see it. You know, before I'm ready to say that. And the experts were wrong. I was completely wrong about the Vikings this past season. But I think the unknown that the quarterback position represents, and I'm just saying that the expectations are very subtly being built up. Statements like we got from Harrison Phillips today, I'm sure he intends nothing but goodwill, and he's trying to be supportive and trying to make a point as a veteran player. But I think that's going to add to the expectation people have, even if they don't admit it to themselves, from what's our season opener? It's Monday night, right?
Monday, September 8th.
Against the Bears, right?
At Soldier Field against the Bears.
That's the meat grinder right out of the bat, isn't it?
House of Horrors.
Think about it.
But we do know that both quarterbacks on the field really wanted to be coached by Kevin O'Connell.
Well, yeah.
We do know that.
That's true.
We've got that going for us.
That's very true. Get to another one that was kind of interesting. This is from Aaron in... Is it Aaron? No, I'm sorry, Ed in St. Paul. I should always have my cheaters on. Dan, McCarthy ain't built like Allen. He'd get busted in two if he played like Josh does. Allen will run you over like a truck. Rumors were that JJ was down to like 150 pounds.
Rumors.
Exaggerating, but not by much. Oh, and he also got married this weekend to actress Haley Steinfeld.
Steinfeld, yeah.
So, but what's that got to do with the price of whatever in China?
I'm not sure. Didn't we just learn JJ's having a baby? I thought we just learned that last week. Didn't
did we?
Seifert tell us that?
Is that true?
Yeah,
you're right. I think you're right
so.
about that. Yeah, I'm not sure where that enters into it or why it should enter into it.
Well, the cynics would say Josh Allen finally got a ring.
Oh, I see.
I don't know if that's what that texter was saying, but the cynics would say Josh Allen finally got a ring.
See.
The smart Alex out there would say that. I would not say that.
Or is he just saying he's got it all? He's a great player, and now he's got...
Must be.
Is that it? Is she... what roles has she played?
She's been in a lot of stuff. She's actually in Sinners most recently. I liked her work in the Pitch Perfect trilogy. I think she was in the second or third one.
Okay.
So the singers out there will appreciate that.
Was a trilogy?
There were three of them. Okay. I don't know if I'd call it a trilogy. I don't know if it was that powerful. Right. But she's been in a bunch of stuff.
Jason from Egan, I definitely think that people that you guys hear from on a regular basis will not have much patience, but that's not exactly a rational snippet of everyone. I do think this team is built to win. So this is not a mulligan year, and he should be expected to be able to lead this team to a successful season. Well, he's kind of confirming what we're saying, but there will be some bumps along the way. I'm kind of expecting Jordan Love's first year starting with the Packers. A lot of hop, a lot of promise, with bumps along the way. Jordan Love's first year, they made the playoffs, right?
They may have.
I can't even remember. It feels like it's been so long ago.
I would say that's all of Jordan Love's years, by the way. I mean, has there been an amazing Jordan Love year that hasn't had some bumps? And obviously, a lot of promise.
Yeah,
and
a lot of promise.
He's been injured a lot, obviously, so there's been that, too.
Jim in St. Paul, JJ is too small. He blew his knee out in game 1. I don't know what Vikings are thinking not getting Rodgers. It's going to be a failed experiment.
Wow.
Man. And they call me Danny Down.
I was going to say, so that texter's the opposite of everybody else that's talking about JJ.
Yeah. Well, I said this yesterday, though. Same thing. If he struggles, some of the same people who said, I'd burn my season tickets before I go watch Aaron Rodgers play for the Vikings, will be saying, maybe we should have especially if Rodgers starts great in Pittsburgh.
Right.
And
Which
our guy struggles.
He'll start pretty well in Pittsburgh. I bet he does.
Do you really?
Yeah, because that's a quality operation.
Yeah, it is.
I know they haven't been great the last handful of years, but they're always pretty substantive.
One other one I had from where did it go? They're pouring in right now. 612 guy predicts 4 wins. Man. Well, we're not highly regarded according to the odds makers either. You saw that, right? We're way down on the list in terms of the odds makers.
That's fine with us.
You're okay with that?
Yep.
This is from Willow Mark Rosen's cat guy. When you opened the show, I thought you were referring to cat trade rumors.
Yeah.
As in it's already started.
Well, there was 4 minutes after they lost the other night, there was a cat hit piece on The Athletic. It's like, God, they can't even let Tibbs address the team.
It's unbelievable. Again, I'm not going to sit here and be a cat apologist because he can be his own worst enemy.
Of course.
We know about silly fouls, the whole bit. Charles Barkley called him on it again the other day. But I just scratched my head with what, I mean, you did get, to the conference championship round for the first time in New York, I think 25 years.
Since 99.
He, plus minus, was your best player in the series. He had one game where he saved you with a 20-point fourth quarter. Right?
Correct. Yep.
And another really good game that and he averaged, I think, 25 points a game in the series, which is the highest average in any playoff series he's ever had, I think, including here.
Yeah.
So I did kiddingly sending out the pregame tweet. Can we trade back for Karl Anthony Towns? Might he be available? If you polled Knicks fans, who make our fans look incredibly rational, I think we could get him back. I don't think New York would do something like that, but I think we might be able to get him back for Randall. They might be ready to take back Dante DiVincenzo and Julius Randle. Just reverse the deal. Has that ever happened in the history of sports? Where the actual deal has been reversed.
Where they just retraded?
They both decide, well, it was
good thought.
Good thought. And it actually, again, we both made it to our Final Four, to the Final Four.
Right.
But we don't like the way we finished. Hard to say.
Yeah, the cat slander is...
my God.
It is interesting. So it's fascinating to me.
Yeah, I mean, and like you say, this is one of those stories, like when a coach gets dismissed, they have ready, it's in the hopper, and we're just waiting for the team to get eliminated. And then we drop it. Like 30 seconds later, it drops, right?
And a lot of it had to do with his teammates grumbling about his defensive rotations and doing his own thing, which I would guess is probably somewhat true. But it's also who you traded for. Like, you got to know who you're trading for a little bit if you're the team. I don't know.
Yeah,
and you could also fix that, I would think.
I also think it's harder to get too high and mighty about your perimeter defense when your point guard scorer is the worst perimeter defender in basketball.
Well, there's that, too.
I just think that's got to be in the equation. And it came up again, by the way. So was it the series with the Celtics? They got killed in Game 5, right? Boston destroyed them in Game 5. And now the stories are out, too. And it may have even been part of the same story. Big team meeting.
Oh.
Big Knicks team meeting. And you saw what happened in 6, right? But as we've talked about before on this, the only time we ever hear about these meetings is when the next game after the meeting results in victory.
Right.
So the assumption is they always work. No, you just don't hear about it. in all honesty, don't you think there have been a million team meetings?
Yes.
In which the next game, despite how badly they looked the previous game, they get clobbered even worse? And we just never hear about it because it's not sexy. It doesn't sound good. No one's going to take it seriously.
Now, to zag a little bit, we did hear about the team dinner the Wolves had before Game 5 on the ESPN broadcast, but we only heard about it for like the first 4 minutes, and then they never went back to it.
Is that true?
From my observations,
well,
they brought it up that, hey, they all went to dinner last night.
And then
Mike Conley told everybody, be your best selves. We need you, blah, blah, blah.
Then they dropped it.
And then we scored 9 points in the first quarter, and we never got more details on that.
So they did at least drop it early.
They
and
brought
set
it up.
The tone.
They tried to set the tone. It was there for further exploration. But the Wolves rendered that exploration meaningless by the way that they played.
Then they were smart enough to say, I think we better drop this because it doesn't
we don't need
really
what
look
wine
like.
they had. We don't need the steaks. We don't need any of that.
What about, what's her name's lasagna? Was that part of it?
Becky Taylor's? I don't think that made it to Oklahoma City.
You're probably right. It's because she's lame duck. She and Glenn are lame duck at this point, correct?
It's probably the last lasagna has ever been served.
Let's get to a searing high school controversy that's getting a lot of attention, and one of those stories where I think there's a lot of people who just don't know whether they want to talk about it.
Fan.
Well, it's a debate that's fraught with landmines. They're pretty much everywhere. We have discussed this particular subject before, but we've tended to discuss it in greater generalities than I think we need to do today. Because in this case, it involves a specific competition, and it's the high school level competition. I believe it's for a softball, right? In the Minnesota State, to get to the Minnesota State High School tournament, to qualify for the tournament. And it's about a specific pitcher who helped, clearly was the key to Champlin Park, finally, to use the Star Tribune's term, scaling a hump that had grown mountainous. And I believe this particular pitcher, I think might have pitched 14 straight scoreless innings to lead the team to the promised land. The last game in question, I think it was a 1-0 victory over Rogers. Now, the story has sort of, the temperature has been raised in this story largely because of U.S. Representative Tom Emmer. Friday, via his official House Majority Whip social media X account, he retweeted a post which I believe named the player. I think the post was from Riley Gaines. Gaines is the 12-time NCAA All-American swimmer. She has become very vocal in her belief that transgender athletes should be banned from competing in women's sports. And the difficulty with this subject we've discussed before. It's that the understandable and reflexive desire to protect individual faces and people, human beings, right? So that it doesn't become, they don't become demonized. They don't become the object of ridicule and scorn, particularly when in a number of cases, certainly in this case, we're talking about a high school kid, right? High school age. And that's, I think, the policy we've both tried to take when talking about this on the show is that, because we had, was it a diver or a swimmer we talked about a while ago, NCAA
swimmer,
related,
I think,
who was kind of caught in the middle of this.
Yep, maybe from Penn.
It might have been, yeah. And for me, it was, let's try to have a legitimate debate. And I think the debate is absolutely legitimate to be had without necessarily pointing our finger at any one individual. The discussion and the finger pointing should be about policy. And what's the sweet spot to get to in terms of policy? Is there one that we can get to? But because we all know the politics of this, I think, there are a lot of individuals, in this case on the right, who pretend that it's about fairness when it's about sort of a rejection of the whole concept. And so they think they got something, they're going to grab onto it, and they're going to run with it. I don't want to be involved in that discussion. That doesn't interest me. But I also don't want to be involved in a discussion that I hear a lot on the left, which is these are individuals. This is a group, a marginalized group that deals with discrimination each and every day and daily problems that we can't even begin to understand. And how dare you exacerbate those problems by attempting to call them out for their desire to just compete like everybody else competes. I'm not there either. I'm not there either because on that basis, you're not allowed to discuss, well, if there is, maybe there's more than one fairness issue here. You're changing the parameters of the competition if you allow individuals born male to participate in female sports. You can look it up. It's not difficult. There's plenty of research to that effect. We quoted from an excellent Washington Post editorial on this subject from about, I don't know, it was a couple of months ago that I thought laid it out very, very nicely. And that's part of fairness. How you grapple with this, we can have this debate, but we should be able to have the discussion. And I'm not much in favor of have you seen the numbers? The percentage here might be 0.0332% of the athletic population. And I'd say doesn't matter if there is literally one individual who falls under this classification. You are still potentially, for individuals who are competing in that sport against that one individual in a way that changes the parameters of the competition. There is a fairness issue to that. We can run away from it if we want, and we can dismiss it on the basis of how dare you're going to make these kids feel worse than they already do about what they have to grapple with. And I would say there's a responsible way that can't call us off the discussion. Because on that basis, it does not allow for any discussion, again, about the fairness issue for those who spent, years and years competing. This came up, there's some track and field events over the weekend. This came up in California. They came up with a couple of last-minute rules changes that, as I thought I understood it, allowed a couple of women or girls to continue to qualify for a couple of state events, along with the transgender individual who had qualified first in that particular category. I don't even completely understand it. The governor of California, Gavin Newsom, had said famously, was it about shortly after the election, that he thought there was a fairness issue there too. So I'm not here, as I think we've said before when we've discussed this, I'm not here to say I have an answer. I don't know exactly what you do. And I'm not interested in identifying any single, athlete who's participating, even though now on the internet, it's not going to be that difficult to figure out who that individual in this case is. That person is playing by whatever rules are in place. There should be zero enmity, in my opinion, with her. If you have frustration, it should be frustration with the policy. Now, there's this is another one of those sharks and jets deals where any chance that we might have had to have a reasonable conversation about this subject in the state of Minnesota went out the window when Trump went with what was one of his executive orders, correct, on this particular issue. I've got it here somewhere. Executive order signed by President Trump in February declared that transgender athletes are not eligible to play in girls' sports. The order opened a U.S. Department of Education probe in a Minnesota State High School League, MSHSL, which in 2015 adopted a policy allowing transgender athletes to participate in girls' sports. And I think they stood by that. There's been a lawsuit, right, that was filed on behalf of 3 metro area Maple Grove and Farmington high school softball players against Attorney General Keith Ellison and other state leaders in an effort to remove transgender athletes from competing in their sports as well, correct? That's the latest here. I don't know, have any idea where that, in the legal process, where that stands at this particular point. But my point is, once Trump is involved, then you know what the other side feels obligated to do. They utterly and completely have to disagree with it, and there can be no reasonable discussion had on this particular subject. So I don't have any answers. I don't even have any way out of the morass. But I'll say what I've said many times, we've quoted a lot of people on this subject. And by the way, if it matters, it shouldn't. But many of them are very left of center politically, historically, very left of center in some cases, ultra left of center in some cases. And they said, this doesn't feel right to me. And many of them, many of them grow up in? They grew up in the Title IX fight for girls and women's participation in sports, the opportunity to compete against one another, right? And so they're going, well, something's wrong with this picture here. It may only be 6 individuals right now, but that number is apparently going to go up, and it's still the idea of to just kick the can down the road, but it's not that many. How many are really affected? I don't care. I'm not speaking to the political right, who for them this is an anti-trans issue, period. They've got some sort of weird fear about this. And they don't interest me in this discussion, but I'm not going to not talk about it, because we're back to you're feeding oxygen to those folks who are in this for only that reason. On the basis of that logic, we apparently can never have an adult, reasonable discussion debating the points having to do with fairness in competition. Because I honestly believe it's possible to have the position, if you have a girl participating in this stuff, that you can be well left of center. This isn't an anti-trans deal to say, I'm raising my hand on this. This is a fairness issue. And that's what we should be here to talk about. But I don't know. There's so much smoke that I don't know that we can get there. What do you think?
I don't know where we can get. I don't think we can get there either because of that part of it. But I also don't know what the there is. I think that's part of the problem. Like, what is the there? What is the ultimate solution at the end of this, whenever it is? You know what I mean? Because there's no doubt the fairness part is true. I'm reading on the California stuff as well, and you mentioned it a little bit that the track and field race, they essentially just added anybody that would have been displaced by that athlete,
that individual. Okay,
and then so there were 3 events where extra people were also included, where they basically say this is, and in track and field, it's not as much a safety issue as it is just a straight up fairness issue. So that's an easier thing to do.
Yes.
I don't know what you do in sports where you're competing in a team atmosphere, or even one-on-one where you're competing with that individual. We had the boxer in the Olympics that we talked about, I think, at the time. So I don't know what the end game is. I think that's part of the reason. Part of the problem is I think most people are somewhere in the middle of trying to find that middle ground of, well, we know what this is not fair. Gavin Newsom quoted a number of times. I don't think he's a screaming conservative. No. Right, I don't think we're going to hear from him on Fox News a lot. But so is the answer just they can never play? They can't play in these games. They can only play these sports. I don't know, and I think that's one of the big problems, because I think people do want to be fair on all sides, but we haven't figured out what that situation is yet. Yeah,
and my belief again is when you read the quotes from folks on both sides of this issue, like in the Emmer story. It immediately goes to, let me see a couple of the quotes here in question that got my attention. This is from a DFLer out of St. Paul. This is not a surprise from a politician like Tom Emmer. He is the brand of conservative politicians who are willing to put trans people at risk. He's the whip, so he speaks not just for himself, but for his caucus and his colleagues. Whether or not he realizes it, when you put a target on an individual like this, you create a situation where it's a permission structure. It creates a situation where other people feel entitled to do the same. Now, if she's speaking specifically on retweet, he didn't name the athlete, but I believe the athlete was named in the original tweet. So he's passing that along. I wouldn't recommend that. that's where, to be honest, he's handing other critics the ammunition to dismiss the larger point. That, to me, is the mistake of trying to make it about any one individual. And because I venture to say, because I've seen some quotes from Ellison on this, where it's, with what those who are transgender have to deal with as it is, this just adds, the Trump edict, the Trump executive order, just adds to the pain of what they have to deal with. But my comeback to that is, but that's not, you're dismissing the question that it's raising. Because on that basis, others who are competing are never going to be allowed to suggest fairness if it's supposed to be men versus men and women versus women, when there's endless studies to indicate the potential advantages that you have here. And so we're back to shouting past each other in a way that I just sort of shake my head and say, well, we're obviously, I don't even know how. I guess it's just going to have to be largely by state, I guess. And we decide kind of largely on the politics of the people who are in charge of policy.
Yeah.
And maybe it's, I'm not, you know me, I'm not big on executive orders. So I didn't like the edict from President Trump. I wouldn't like it from Joe Biden either. But, so I'm fine with, I guess, states trying to figure it out. But I don't even think we're trying really to figure it out. I don't even think we're trying to have a discussion. Because to your point, in an individual sport like track, you can try to sort of kick the can down the road a little bit or open the door by adding competitors, right? Even though in the end, there's still a chance that as what happened here, the championship's going to be lost.
Yep.
But in a softball game or tournament, you can't advance both teams, right? That's not practical. That doesn't work that way. There's only so many slots in the state tournament. So in team sports, you're not going to be able to, I don't think, get to any sort of compromise in that regard. But we all end up, sort of going back to our overall larger positions on this thing that doesn't allow for the possibility, because I even gotten a couple of texts saying, look, this person said, I hope a lot of people have no interest in demonizing any individual here. I want none of that. I will tolerate none of that. I will call that out as much as I can. But on the other hand, I don't feel I think there is a fairness issue to the athletes who have been toiling since age whatever age it is, that they've been participating in a given sport, that something potentially was taken away from them. That's also fairness. So there's two different kinds of fairness going on here. I think there should be a big difference between saying, we're not sure you should be able to compete in this competition, and saying that in every other aspect of your life, you should be demonized or discriminated against in any way. Now, are those things incompatible? Do you say, well, you are discriminating? I'd say you're not wrong, but I would say it all depends on how many individuals how many people are you trying to protect in the name of fairness? And it's a subject that largely, I think, like I said, in this town gets tiptoed around because of the fear that if you suggest there's a fairness issue for the players who are playing, you're worried that you're going to be called a transphobe. You're worried that you're going to immediately see you're a part of why these kids are so emotionally vulnerable in the first place. And that's quite an accusation. And it's one that then a lot of people say, well, that's not worth it then. I just let it go and I'll let somebody else deal with it. I'll let somebody else decide that there's something to think about here. And again, my guess is my honest opinion is that if we did a poll, even in the state of Minnesota, which is a polarized state now, but still, I would say it's certainly left of center metro, right? We know that. Mm-hmm. Changed dramatically outstate. But my honest opinion is a majority of individuals would say, I have a problem with the fairness of an individual who may have gotten some added advantage on the basis of what that person was when he or she was born, participating in sports against those who have not had that advantage. I really do.
Well, in a poll that the USA Today is citing when talking about the California thing, this is for the country, they say more than 70% of U.S. adults think transgender athletes should not be allowed to participate in girls' and women's sports at the high school level,
right,
college or professional level. So I think that's, to your point, we were talking about Minnesota, but nationally, that was the poll that the USA Today is talking about.
Yeah, I'm saying, I even think here, I don't think it would be that different, even though,
I agree.
Again, even in the metro area, that's where I think, because like I said, I think reasonable people can think two thoughts at once. And they'd say, I'm there for that kid. I don't want anything to happen to that kid, and I'm going to decry anybody who makes it about that individual. It's leaving aside the morality of it. It's a stupid political strategy to me. Now, you can again say, well, who's kidding who? Even we're not naming the athlete, but it's not that difficult to find out because in the age of the internet. So is there a meaningful distinction? So just us raising it, is there the chance that we're in that sense isolating that individual? We're trying to not to, as much as we can, without ceding, I think, the right to have the discussion and the debate, which I don't think we can just give up on the basis of the battle lines being drawn on it politically that have to do with a lot of folks who are interested in this story for reasons that have nothing to do with fairness. We know that. But the fact that those people exist and they want to use this is like political red meat for them. If we dismiss talking about anything on that basis, then what are we left with? I still think we have to be able to discuss it. And I think, as we've quoted, from a number of sources, Gerald Posner's been all over this story. Gerald Posner grew up about as liberal. He's a Berkeley, California guy, for God's sake. Now, some of his politics may have changed over the years, but he's under siege for some of the reporting that he's done on this story. And we haven't ventured into and we have once, I think, the area of what kind of for children under the age of 18, because after 18, to me, it's your body, you do whatever you want to it. There are legitimate questions to ask about the approaches that have been taken too easily regarding surgeries. That being as an example on the basis of very faulty research. That's another subject for another day, but it's all akin to the same thing. And we're all, like I said, not all, but a lot of people I think are hesitant to go down it because it just seems so fraught. Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line is open at 64686. Johnny Athletic, Toy Department, 4:30. Filing a live report on Tim Conley, who had his briefing today, his session with the media, his exit interview. I don't mean exit like he's leaving. In fact, he seemed to double down on what he told us a few weeks ago, that we're stuck with him, is basically what he said. This feels like home, which I think should be very welcome news from that particular press conference. Kyle Potter, Thrifty Traveler guy, at 5.